Warning: why private equity is stealing your final $25,000, the death monopoly exposed. The $25,000 question. The pen hovers over the last line. Total due today, $24,987. An hour ago, the estimate was 16 grand. Now there's an $1,895 basic services, charge you can't refuse, $750 for a viewing room nobody asked for $180 for refrigeration, and embalming slid in to avoid delays. Flowers facilitated, through the home jumped by 30%. And that clause: if you bring your own casket, there's a restocking risk, a delivery window fee, and no guarantee of fit. You sign because you're exhausted. The question that won't let go: who built a system that turns grief into your final $25,000? How death became a business model. To understand that contract, we need to go back to when funerals left the front parlor and moved to the showroom. In the mid-20th century, washing and laying out the dead was something families and churches did. By the 1960s and 1970s, embalming, casket selection, and chapel services migrated into dedicated facilities. The black sedan replaced the neighbor's pickup. What looked like modernization was something else too: the creation of a product menu around loss. The Federal Trade Commission stepped in 1984 with a simple idea: if families could compare prices, they'd avoid pressure. The funeral rule required itemized price lists, phone quotes, and the freedom to buy a casket elsewhere. It worked on paper. In practice, it had a fatal softness. The rule allowed funeral homes to bundle overhead into a basic services fee you cannot decline. That fee became the anchor everything else hangs on, a quiet floor that pushes totals upward no matter how simple you try to go. While the rules settled in, a new breed of company tested the market's edges. Service Corporation International, founded in 1962, started rolling up mom-and-pop homes, keeping local names on the awning while standardizing everything behind the desk. Carriage and Foundation Partners followed. The idea was simple: buy fragmented businesses at small multiples, centralize the back office, create uniform good, better, best packages, and grow margins with consistency, not care. Today, SCI towers over the landscape. More than 1,900 funeral homes and cemeteries across 44 states, serving over 600,000 families a year, with a market cap hovering around $11.5 billion. That scale doesn't just mean more hearses. It means purchasing power on caskets and vaults, shared call centers, pricing templates that can be pushed system-wide, and websites that look local while routing to corporate funnels. When a community name stays on the door, the trust stays too. The pricing power follows. Meanwhile, vulnerabilities baked into grief never changed. Death arrives with a deadline. You've got days, sometimes hours, to decide on transport, disposition, and paperwork. Information asymmetry is brutal. Most people buy a funeral once or twice in a lifetime, while the director across the desk arranges dozens every month. Pre-need contracts, pitched as gifts to your future self, move tomorrow's money into today's pipeline. Bundles hide individual costs, and emotions make even simple refusals feel like disrespect. Into that mix walked private equity with a thesis tailor-made for death care: services plus real estate. Funeral homes aren't just businesses. They're buildings with dedicated chapels, prep rooms, and prime corners next to long-established cemeteries. Cemeteries themselves are land banks with recurring revenue: plots, open and close fees, markers, vaults, and perpetual care. It's a classic roll-up. Buy at 4 to 6 times EBITDA from aging owners, standardize, raise prices, cross-sell cemetery and memorial products, then exit at 8 to 10 times because now it's platform scale. The packaging looks professional. Price sheets become tiered celebration of life experiences. Cremation, once the low-cost alternative, gets a halo of add-ons: upgraded urns, private viewings, priority scheduling, webcasts, keepsake jewelry. The funeral rules itemization is observed, but the framing nudges you away from a la carte toward curated bundles that feel respectful and complete. What nobody tells you in the moment is that framing is the product. What nobody tells you at the regulation level is just as important. The funeral rule requires price lists be given in person and by phone. It doesn't require them online. That's where corporate scale compounds. Consolidators pour money into search engine optimization. So when you Google affordable cremation near me, you land on a lead gen page that isn't the independent down the block. It's the chain that bought their competitor. You think you're shopping, you're already in the funnel. Now layer in cremation's rise. Cremation should reduce costs. It often doesn't. Corporations leaned into cremation volume by re-engineering margins around memorialization. SCI has steadily shifted revenue toward cremation services while preserving profitability with upsells and package logic. Independents tried to keep pace. Some sold. Others watched their calls migrate to the chain's call centers, where a script meets you with empathy, then a ladder, transfer fee, identification, care and shelter, package tiers, and finally the emotional closer. Most families choose. This was the moment finance and ritual fully merged. Sale-leasebacks extracted cash from funeral home real estate and turned land into a rent obligation. Debt layered on steady cash flows from at-need and pre-need sales. Dividends and fees skimmed cash to the top long before exits. The operating incentive sharpened. Maximize average revenue per family and minimize time per arrangement. The family's clock is a vulnerability. The firm's clock is a quarterly report. These forces didn't just tilt the market. They rewrote the language around grief. Required for sanitation sounds like law. In many states, it's policy. Cash advance reads like a pass-through. It often isn't. The fine print on pre-need plans guarantees service fees, but not cemetery costs or third-party charges. Exactly the parts unions struggle to contest later. If the provider merges or closes, substitution clauses can leave you with less than you thought you'd locked. And because regulation slowed, teeth dulled. The FTC enforces the funeral rule, but relies on complaints and spot checks, and penalties are modest. Updating rules for the digital age, like mandatory online price posting, has dragged. After the Supreme Court undercut agency deference in 2024, the path to stronger federal guardrails got steeper, and the industry's lawyers noticed. While that was happening in Houston boardrooms, families across the country kept signing contracts they didn't really want, at prices they didn't really see, under a clock they didn't set. That's how a ritual became a business model, and a business model became an extractive system. Now we follow how the roll-up works in practice, where the numbers move, and how that pen reaches $24,987 before you even realize the ink is dry. The private equity playbook: roll up, rebrand, reprice. The algorithm looks simple on a slide deck. Identify a fragmented market where most operators are nearing retirement. Margins can be standardized, and customers don't shop twice. That's death care. Private equity arrives with a promise: succession for the owner, continuity for the town, upgrades for the building. Behind the scenes, the numbers are clearer than the condolences. Step 1. Buy at 4 to 6 times EBITDA. The pitch to the owner is subtle. Protect your legacy, keep your name, take care of your staff. The purchase agreement includes an earn-out, so the seller stays on for 2 years to smooth calls and hand over relationships. The sign out front doesn't change. The payroll and purchasing systems do. Centralization moves quickly: accounting, HR, marketing, phone triage, pricing templates. While that's happening across town, a second acquisition closes, then a third. The new parent quietly controls 3 independents in a 10-mile radius. Families think they're calling around. They're not. Back-office consolidation means one call center fields all 3 numbers. The script opens with empathy and urgency, then moves to options. The options are the point. Step 2. Rebrand without rebranding. Legacy names stay, and sons, family, memorial. The websites share the same structure and lead forms, all feeding the same CRM. Obituaries hosted on memorial pages double as storefronts for flowers, candles, and video tributes, with margins routed back to the network. Preferred vendors get exclusivity. Local florists and printers either accept the new split or lose the work. The illusion of choice survives the sale. Step 3. Reprice. The general price list still exists, but it's reframed into good, better, best. The base direct cremation looks low, often used for SEO. The moment a family wants to see mom or hold a service, the package ladder starts climbing. The basic services of funeral director and staff. The non-declinable fee anchors the ticket. Facility fees, staff time for visitation, and care and shelter are structured as mandatory steps toward what most families feel is respectful. A la carte becomes friction. Bundles become relief. What nobody knew at the time of acquisition. Small line items hold the biggest levers. Refrigeration, paperwork processing, removal after hours, weekend surcharges, and priority scheduling for cremation. Each feels rational when viewed alone. In combination, they move a funeral from $3,000 to $7,500, from $7,500 to $12,000. Caskets present another tier. Third-party caskets are allowed by law, but policy creates soft penalties, tight delivery windows, storage disclaimers, fit not guaranteed. Families back away from friction under time pressure. Meanwhile, pre-need becomes tomorrow's certainty, sold today. The sales team is retrained to offer protection from inflation through trusts and insurance-backed plans. Commissions are baked in. The guarantee language is precise. Services are protected. Cemetery and third-party costs are not. If the provider is later sold, substitution clauses ensure the contract flows to the new owner. Portability looks clean until a family tries to move a plan across state lines and finds surrender penalties or value leakage. On the P&L, synergies start appearing. Central purchasing cuts casket and vault costs. Lead gen beats local word of mouth. SEO pages for affordable cremation siphon calls from independents. Average revenue per arrangement ticks up as scripts tighten and staff are bonused on conversion and package tier adoption. Training shifts the culture from counselor to closer. Most families choose becomes not just a line, but a metric. What nobody tells the community is the exit math. Roll-up sell on multiple expansion. Buy a single home at 5 times earnings, combine 10 homes, demonstrate standardized pricing and steady cash flow, then sell the platform at 8 to 10 times. In the middle, dividend recaps pull cash out, and real estate sale-leasebacks turn owned property into rent obligations. The business looks more asset-light on paper, but the monthly overhead rises. That overhead has one reliable payer: families under deadline. While that was happening in New York, a similar pattern unfolded in small southern towns. Independents facing cremation pressure considered discount models. Chains countered with celebration of life menus, professional video, live streams, and grief subscriptions on memorial sites. The cultural language shifted from rights to products. The price followed the production value. The playbook thrives in opacity. The FTC's funeral rule requires itemized lists, but it doesn't force online disclosure. That gap is where private equity builds moats. If you can't see prices without a call, the call becomes the showroom. Scripts control order, framing, and tempo. We can honor your wishes pairs with "here's what families typically do." By the time a quote arrives, a dozen small yes have already pushed the total north. There's one more move: vertical integration. Owning the funeral home is step 1. Adding the cemetery is step 2. Once both are under one roof, cross-sell economics kick in. Plots, vaults, opening and closing markers, perpetual care, mausoleum premiums. Transfer fees and right of interment, fine print create decades-long dependencies. A single signature binds a family to a single provider for generations. This is the roll-up, rebrand, reprice engine. It doesn't look predatory from the lobby. It feels organized, caring, comprehensive. The pressure is in the clock, the menu, and the sequence. And if you're wondering when families feel it most, that comes next, when grief meets the invoice, and the add-ons turn invisible choices into unavoidable charges. The $25,000 shock, at-need price escalators. You feel it the minute the arrangement conference starts. The general price list slides across the table, but the first number that actually matters is the non-declinable basic services of funeral director and staff. It sounds like overhead because it is paperwork, coordination, a 24-hour response line, and it's mandatory. That fee anchors the bill before anyone chooses a room, a casket, or even a time. You can try to go simple. The floor still rises. Meanwhile, facility and staff charges take turns becoming essential. Want to see your father for 15 minutes to say goodbye? That triggers a visitation block, not 5 minutes of staff time. The chapel you didn't ask for appears as a line item because a private farewell must happen somewhere, and the somewhere has a price. On weekends or after hours, the same room costs more. The calendar itself is monetized. Embalming sits on the list as optional, but the narrative shifts fast. You're told it's standard for a meaningful viewing, or that refrigeration can cause delays if you don't authorize chemical preservation. In many states, no law requires embalming for a service without public viewing, yet the way it's framed carries an implied duty. Turning it down sounds like cutting a corner. Under grief, corners feel like disrespect. Then the quiet margins arrive: refrigeration per day, permit processing, obituary handling, and removal fees that jump at 6 p.m. and double at midnight. Care and shelter appears as a daily charge even if the cremation won't occur until the paperwork clears. Paperwork often managed by the same provider charging to manage it. Each piece feels defensible. Together, they become a stairway you climb without noticing the grade. Caskets turn that stairway into a lock. The funeral rule says they must accept a third-party casket. The policy packet makes it hard. There's delivery window fee if the truck misses a 2-hour slot, a fit not guaranteed clause that shifts risk to you, and a storage disclaimer if the casket arrives too early. If you back out of a showroom pick after signing, a restocking fee appears. The law is on your side, the clock is not. Most families yield to the path with fewer alarms. Cash advances look like pass-throughs, flowers, clergy honorariums, newspaper obituaries, death certificates. You assume cost equals cost. The invoice says otherwise. A facilitation, percentage rides along, or preferred vendors come pre-selected on a memorial page the funeral home controls. You can order your own arrangement online, but then you'll face a delivery handling fee or a suggestion that non-preferred flowers might arrive late before the service. Again, friction does the work of policy. Cremation advertising promises relief. A few $100s, simple, dignified. Call the number, and the base price covers only the act itself. Identification, required in many firms' policies, is billed as a separate visit. A private goodbye becomes a ceremonial viewing that pulls in staff and room charges. An urn upgrade replaces the cardboard box. Priority or expedited cremation shortens the wait for a fee. Even the handoff of ashes can carry an appointment charge if you need weekend pickup. The total crosses into thousands before anyone uses the chapel. Across town, families feel the same pattern with burial. The graveside committal looks cheaper than a chapel service until opening and closing fees, vault requirements, and tent or chairs show up on the cemetery side. If funeral home and cemetery share an owner, the coordination you didn't ask for becomes a package you can't split without penalties. The right of interment reads like ownership. The rules make it a license, with transfer fees if you change your mind. This is where the shock sets in, when you realize there's no single big gouge, just a dozen small gates. Each gate is timed to a decision you didn't plan to make, inside a week you didn't plan to live. The pen hovers over initials on a form you barely read. A staffer waits, kind but urgent, because the crematory schedule is tight, because the cemetery crew needs notice, because the newspaper's deadline is noon. Your choices narrow to yes now, or delays that feel like dishonor. What nobody tells you at the table is how these escalators were designed to operate together. The non-declinable fee guarantees revenue. Facility and staff charges monetize presence. Embalming norms monetize perception. Cash advances monetize convenience. Casket policies monetize fear of getting it wrong. Cremation packages monetize time. Under that structure, grief isn't just accommodated, it's priced. And when you ask why it costs this much, the answer sounds like logistics. The truth is incentives. Scripts turn courtesy into conversion. Bundles turn judgment calls into defaults. The bill turns invisible pressure into visible numbers. That's the moment totals leap from 16 to 25,000. Not because you wanted more, but because the system taught you to say yes faster than you could ask why. The funeral rule's weak teeth. 3 days earlier, before the contract and the pen, there was a rule meant to stop this. In 1984, the FTC said funeral homes had to hand you an itemized general price list, give you prices over the phone, and accept caskets you bought elsewhere. The idea was simple: sunlight reduces pressure. But the light never reached where families actually decide, online late at night under a deadline. The first weak spot is timing. The rule triggers in person and by phone. It doesn't force prices onto websites, where most families start. So you click through soft focus photos and request a quote forms. No totals, no line items. You submit your contact info and a clock starts. On their side, a call center timer. On yours, a grief timer. By the time an email arrives, the conversation is already shaped by a script, not a list. Then there's the non-declinable anchor. The rule let funeral homes roll overhead into one mandatory fee. Basic services of funeral director and staff. It sounds like admin. It behaves like a toll gate. You can choose or refuse flowers, limos, embalming. You can't decline the basic fee. In practice, it blunts price competition because every path starts with the same unavoidable charge. Even if you strip everything else, the floor barely moves. The acceptance of outside caskets looks strong on paper too. The rule says they must take a third-party casket and can't charge a handling fee. In real rooms, policy does the deterring. Delivery windows so tight a freight delay becomes your fault. Disclaimers that fit isn't guaranteed. Storage limits that penalize early arrival. None of that violates the letter of the rule. All of it chills the choice it's supposed to protect. Enforcement is another soft joint. The FTC mostly relies on complaints and periodic sweeps. If you don't know your rights in the moment, you won't file after the funeral. Even when investigators find violations, fines are limited, and settlements often require training, not refunds. For a consolidator, that's a rounding error. For a family, it's the rent money that vanished into facilitation. The digital gap widened as the industry professionalized its funnels. The FTC has considered requiring online price posting for years. Meanwhile, chains invest in SEO and lead generation. Search affordable cremation and land on a page owned by a consolidator, maybe wearing your town's legacy name. No prices until you give a number. Once you're on the phone, the rule applies, but the script is already steering. Most families choose, and your comparison shopping becomes comparison framing. State rules make the map patchy. Some states still nudge embalming through health code language. Others exempt cemeteries from the funeral regulations that cover homes, letting pricing games move across the property line. Licensing can wall off new entrants, even community co-ops. And perpetual care, oversight varies so widely that abuses go undetected until the grass is knee-high and the trust fund is empty. Michigan had to take over 28 cemeteries after $61 million went missing. That wasn't a glitch, it was a visibility problem. What nobody knew at the time of the rules drafting was how much courts would matter 4 decades later. In 2024, when the Supreme Court cut back agency deference, updating consumer protections got harder. The FTC can't lean as easily on its own interpretations to modernize the rule, like forcing clear web disclosures or outlawing certain deterrent policies. Every change invites a challenge. Every challenge buys time for the status quo. Meanwhile, compliance training keeps pace with audits, not with tactics. A director can hand you a valid price list and still bury the number you came for inside 5 context paragraphs. A website can say "call for details" in a font that looks friendly and still function as a toll booth. The letter of the rule survives, the spirit limps. Here's where it gets personal. The protections work only if families can see and use them before they're in the room. But the room is where most choices are made, and the room belongs to the seller. That's the asymmetry the rule never solved. The industry evolved around it: scripts, bundles, policies that stop just short of violations, and a sales culture measured in conversion rates. In the aftermath of your signature, it's easy to think you missed something obvious. You didn't. The guardrails were never built for the road you drove: online, compressed, emotional, and steered by firms that practice this every day. The rule asks for honesty. It doesn't require clarity. It asks for lists. It doesn't demand visibility. And it leaves the heaviest weight, the clock, untouched. To change that, regulators need sharper tools, states need cleaner oversight, and websites need actual numbers. Until then, the funeral rule sets the floor, cemeteries and the market
perpetual
writes the
maintenance,
rest of the bill.
perpetual cash flow.
While the funeral rule wrestles with the front end, the longer game plays out on land. Cemeteries look like quiet places. Financially, they're machines. The revenue doesn't end when the funeral does. It starts again with the ground. Here's the stakes moment families don't see. Burial is a chain of fees. You buy the right to be buried in a plot, not the dirt itself. That right comes with rules: who can be buried there, how markers look, what vaults are allowed. Then the cemetery charges to open and close the grave. There are fees for the concrete vault that most cemeteries require to keep the ground level. There's the setting of the marker, the cost of the marker, and sometimes a charge to approve a marker bought elsewhere. Every service is a toll point, and none of it is covered by the funeral home's contract you just signed. Meanwhile, the phrase that comforts people, perpetual care, sounds like a promise. It's really a fund. A percentage of each plot sale is supposed to flow into a trust, invested so the income pays for mowing, trimming, road repairs, and headstone resets forever. That trust is the heart of the cemetery's future. It's also where opacity hides the damage. How much goes in varies by state. How the income is counted varies by method. How the money is overseen varies by office. if it's overseen at all. What nobody knew at the graveside is how often those trusts fail quietly. Michigan learned the hard way. After families started complaining about uncut grass and broken stones, investigators found tens of millions missing. The state took over 28 cemeteries because $61 million in trust funds had been siphoned or mismanaged. That wasn't one bad actor with a shovel. It was years of thin disclosures and weak checks adding up until there was nothing left to care for the dead. Families who thought they'd paid for perpetual dignity discovered they'd prepaid for a problem. From a consolidator's perspective, cemeteries are beautiful businesses. Land appreciates. Inventory is finite, which creates urgency. Add-ons, family estates, double-depth spaces, mausoleum crypts, cremation niches carry high margins. Opening and closing fees rise with labor and equipment, and weekend or holiday surcharges are standard. Even outside the burial, there are interment right transfers. If you sell or move a plot, the cemetery can charge a transfer fee. If you want to place an urn in a family plot, there's a second right fee. The contract language reads like property law. The experience feels like subscription. Vertical integration supercharges it. When the same parent company owns the funeral home and the cemetery, the cross-sell logic becomes default. In the arrangement room, you're shown packages that coordinate seamlessly with our cemetery team. On the grounds, you're told the funeral home partner can handle everything. Coordination is convenience, and convenience becomes margin. The two sides of the business reinforce each other's pricing power. A family that tries to split services between providers runs into policies. Installation only for approved markers, or vaults must meet our specifications. That steers spending back in-house. Perpetual care funds sit quietly underneath, smoothing cash flows and soothing regulators on paper. But the incentives can twist. In some states, cemeteries can adopt unitrust models, withdrawing a fixed percentage of the fund's value each year, not just interest. In a down market, that means eating principal to keep the lawn cut. Over time, even a modest mismatch between deposits, investment returns, and withdrawals leaves a gap no sales pitch can fill. The gap shows up in maintenance first, then in headlines. Families feel the consequences years later. The funeral is long past. A daughter visits on Memorial Day and finds tire ruts by the stone. A son asks for a reset and sees a bill. The upkeep promised by the brochure depends on a trust whose performance he can't see and whose governance he never voted on. If the cemetery changes owners, the rules can change too. Right of interment protects access in theory. Transfer and administrative fees can tax it in practice. Meanwhile, pre-need marketing reaches into the cemetery years before anyone needs it. Sales reps host lunch and learn sessions about planning family estates to keep everyone together. Mausoleum tours explain why above ground offers dignity and protection. Cremation niches are framed as a legacy wall your grandchildren can visit. The pitch closes on scarcity. This garden is 80% sold, and on relief, lock today's prices. The fine print makes clear what's guaranteed and what's not. The emotion carries the pen anyway. What nobody tells you is how permanent the vendor relationship becomes. Once a plot is chosen and a stone is set, switching isn't realistic. Rules about marker types and installers lock families into preferred vendors. Even flower policies can create captive revenue, nudging purchases through on-site stores or approved partners with revenue shares. The cemetery office becomes a retail counter with marble floors. In the aftermath of the Michigan seizures, some states tightened reporting. Others didn't. Oversight remains a patchwork. Families rarely ask to see care fund statements before buying a plot, and many cemeteries aren't required to hand them over proactively. That blindness is the business model's ally. If maintenance holds, nobody asks where the money sits. If maintenance slips, it's often too late for accountability to matter to the people already buried there. Here's the quiet truth. Funerals monetize a week, cemeteries monetize a century. The initial bill is only the front door. The contracts, trust funds, and rules keep the cash flowing as memory does the marketing. You don't get to renegotiate grief. You revisit it, and the invoice can follow. Pre-need contracts, tomorrow's revenue, today's leverage. Meanwhile, something else is happening years before anyone calls the number on the website. It's a lunch at a church hall, a letter that says, "Don't leave this burden to your kids." A neighbor who swears pre-planning was the best gift she gave her family. Pre-need isn't a product, it's a narrative, responsible people lock in peace of mind. On the business side, it's tomorrow's revenue booked today, and the most reliable lever in the industry. Here's the stakes moment families don't see. When you sign a pre-need, you're not just choosing services. You're choosing where leverage sits when the day comes. The contract channels decisions through one provider, one set of rules, one trust or insurance plan. The promise is protection from inflation. The reality is that guarantees live in the fine print. Service fees may be locked. Cemetery fees and third-party costs are usually not. The gap becomes the margin years later. What actually happens is precise. A counselor, now a salesperson, meets you at your kitchen table with a kindness that feels like relief. They lay out two funding paths, a trust or a life insurance policy tailored for funeral expenses. The trust pays modest interest. The policy builds value but comes with commissions. Either way, the provider gets cash flow and a booked future call. The contract lists basic services, transport, a casket or cremation container tier, and maybe a visitation. It reads like certainty. But there's one problem: portability. You move across state lines to be near grandkids. The plan doesn't always travel well. Some policies allow assignment to a new provider with no penalty. Others include surrender charges, administrative fees, or simply honor the dollar value rather than the specific goods and services you thought you'd locked. If the receiving home's prices are higher, and they often are, you cover the difference. The guarantee that looked like a shield becomes a number on a different menu. Substitution clauses inject another twist. If your chosen provider closes or is acquired, the contract moves. The new owner honors the agreement based on current equivalents, not the exact items listed. A mid-tier casket becomes comparable, which can mean something different once a corporate catalog replaces the old one. In a roll-up, that shift benefits the template, not the family's memory of what was promised at the kitchen table. The inflation math is where most people stumble. Service fees might be guaranteed. Third-party items, cemetery opening and closing, vaults, clergy honorariums, death certificates, are not. Over a decade, those can double. The shortfall shows up the week of the funeral as cash advance differences. You prepaid to reduce stress. You still end up writing checks for the parts that moved fastest. Meanwhile, the sales pitch never flagged that split because the emotion carried the moment. Breakage economics hide in the background. Some contracts lapse when payments stop. Others are canceled when families downsize plans. In both cases, the provider might keep fees or commissions already taken, and the trust can return less than you paid after administrative costs. On a spreadsheet, breakage is a line of incremental margin. In a living room, it's a promise that didn't land. From the firm's perspective, pre-need is beautiful. It smooths cash flow in a business driven by unpredictable timing. It builds a pipeline of guaranteed future calls insulated from local competition. It increases average revenue per arrangement because the most families choose. Talk happens years before grief compresses judgment. Cross-sells, cemetery plots, vaults, niches, attach while people are calm, then become immovable decisions later, when changing providers feels impossible. Meanwhile, consolidation scales this quietly. When a chain acquires a home with thousands of pre-need contracts, it doesn't just buy a building. It buys a captive future. The brand outside still reads "and Sons," but the financing and fulfillment feed a national system. The CRM connects your plan to call centers and standardized packages. When the day comes, the script doesn't start at zero. It starts at the tier you picked years ago, then layers on whatever wasn't guaranteed. Here's where it gets personal. A son opens a file his mother kept neatly in a drawer. The contract is there, yellowed a bit, with a confident signature. He calls the number and hears a different company name, but we're the same folks. The service fee is honored. The casket line becomes equivalent. The cemetery charges are not included under the guarantee. There's a transfer fee because the plot she bought is in another county. The son swallows and nods. He wants to honor the plan. What nobody tells him is that he could have used that plan's value at an independent provider across town, if the contract allowed portability without penalty, or that he could have asked for a full itemization of what is and isn't guaranteed before authorizing any add-ons, or that he could have declined embalming unless there's a public viewing and law or policy actually requires it. The pre-need funnel relies on gratitude, a mother thought ahead, so questioning feels like disrespect. In the aftermath, families often say pre-need spared them decisions. It did, It also locked in a vendor and a structure. For some, that's worth it. For others, it's where leverage quietly left the room. The defense isn't to avoid planning. It's to separate planning from prepaying. Ask for itemized price lists from multiple providers now. Put your wishes in writing. Fund a small, flexible account in your own name. Keep control of the money and the choices until someone actually needs to make them. Local names, national margins, the brand camouflage. Unknown to most families, the logo on the door isn't the whole story. A chain buys Baker & Sons, keeps the gold script on the awning, and slips a new EIN into the books. The obituary still reads arrangements by Baker & Sons, but the condolence link routes through a corporate memorial platform. You're inside a national system long before you step into the lobby. Here's where it gets personal. A daughter types her father's name into the obituary tool the funeral home recommends. The page blooms with candles, slideshows, and a big send flowers button. Prices look fair. The vendor is preferred, which sounds like quality. What nobody tells her is that the platform takes a cut and the florist split changed after the acquisition. The daisies cost more here than across town, but the page she trusts makes the comparison hard. The tribute feels generous, the margin flows upstream. Meanwhile, reviews blur accountability. The new parent company owns 3 homes in the county, all with similar names and similar websites. On Google, complaints scatter, delivery windows, surprise fees, a staffer who pushed too hard, spread across listings that look independent. Yelp threads mix praise for the old owner with frustration about new policies. The pattern is there, but the diffusion blunts outrage. If you try to warn a neighbor, you end up saying, check reviews. And she lands on a different location with prettier stars. Across town, vendor exclusivity tightens the net. Local florists used to walk in the side door, drop arrangements, and hug the director they'd known for 20 years. Now there's a portal, a percentage, and a policy. Non-partner deliveries assessed a handling fee. Late arrivals rejected if they miss a narrow window. The live stream company that charged a church $200 to set up a camera now bills $495 inside the package, with hosting under the memorial site's subscription. The invoice calls it seamless service. The florist calls it a wall. What nobody knew in the arrangement room is how obituary steering works. The funeral home offers to handle the notice and posts it on their branded page. Family and friends share the link on social, where ads and add-ons sit inches from the eulogy. There's a button for keepsake printings, another for premium video. If you click donate, the platform may take a processing fee before passing funds to the named charity. It's all clean, disclosed in small print, and entirely aligned with one owner's ecosystem. Meanwhile, the phone numbers that feel local ring into a centralized desk. A calm voice answers Baker & Sons, but her dashboard shows 3 affiliated properties. She can book rooms across sites, cross-sell chapel capacity, and nudge families toward the location with the higher package adoption rate. When a caller says, "We're considering Harper Funeral Home too," the script pivots without flinching because Harper is in the same network. Choice survives as choreography. The illusion deepens online. 3 separate domains, bakerandsonsfuneral.com, baker-memorial.com, bakerfamilycare.com, share fonts, colors, and forms. Each ranks for affordable cremation in a different neighborhood. The contact form looks simple. The CRM on the other side scores the lead and routes it to the closer with the best, most families choose, conversion. If you try to leave, a chat pops up with a condolence and a limited-time discount on the viewing room. Loss meets a countdown clock. Inside, staff feel the shift. A director who once waived a room fee for a teacher's widow now has targets. He can still make it right, but every discount pings a manager's dashboard. Scripts evolve. To honor your mother's life, most families select becomes the standard bridge. The old owner's photo still hangs in the hall. The incentives hang heavier. By the time you realize 3 independent homes share one parent, you've already locked dates, invited relatives, and posted the obituary link that steers friends to branded flowers and video tributes. You can push back, source an outside florist, ask for line item live stream costs, insist on a la carte, but the friction lives in the details. Delivery windows, platform logins, not responsible for quality, disclaimers on non-preferred vendors. Under a deadline, friction wins. Here's the quiet math. Brand camouflage protects pricing power. Community trust carries forward while corporate policies reshape the bill. Reviews scatter heat. Memorial pages convert grief into e-commerce. Preferred vendors turn neighbors into affiliates. And if you try to shop around, you're still inside the same owner's funnel. The names look local. The margins aren't. DeathTech, lead funnels, dynamic pricing, and SEO moats. While the local names kept trust alive, the real power moved online. Late at night, a son types affordable cremation near me. The first 3 results look like different providers. All 3 feed the same consolidator. He clicks, fills a request information form, and a countdown begins. Not on his screen, on a dashboard that scores grief like a sales lead. Here's where the stakes get sharp. Search engines become gatekeepers to farewell. Independents who don't pay for SEO drift to page 2. Chains build microsites that match every zip code and keyword. The domains look neighborly. The backend routes everything to a single CRM. Before a human speaks, the system knows the caller's neighborhood, likely income, and preferred time to talk. Care meets targeting. The call center script is polished. It opens with condolences, then quietly moves into a ladder. To ensure timely care, we'll schedule the transfer. That's a yes. Most families choose identification prior to cremation. Another yes. Would you like a private farewell? A third rung. Objections have pre-written paths. Totally understand. The simple package includes dignified handling, followed by a nudge. For context, many families find comfort in the words feel gentle. The outcomes are measured in conversion rates and average ticket. Meanwhile, the pricing isn't as fixed as it looks. On the screen in front of the agent, tiers adjust by zip code and volume. If calls spike in one district, next week cremation slots grow scarce, and priority fees surface to hold a place in line. Weekends add surcharges. After-hours transfers increase by default. None of it is advertised on the landing page. All of it appears once the family is deep enough into the funnel that backing out feels like abandoning the process. Unknown to them, across town, a different family lands on a memorial platform that looks like a community service. It's a storefront. The obituary page sells candles, flowers, video slideshows, and keepsake downloads. The cart suggests add a tribute video for $195 and premium guestbook hosting. Annual renewals arrive a year later. Keep Dad's page active, a subscription to grief. The revenue shares are baked into contracts the family will never see. What nobody knew at the time was that dynamic pricing learned from airlines. Inventory management meets mortality. Cemeteries plug in too. Calendars sync to show limited grave opening slots. Expedited scheduling costs more. If a storm delays crews, the system reprices. Families here. We can fit Friday if we add a rush fee. It sounds like logistics. It's algorithmic scarcity. Then there's the moat. Search ads for independent funeral home that lead to chain-owned comparison pages. The independent sites, plain, with downloadable PDFs, get buried. Even when they rank, lead gen pages by their names as keywords and intercept. A daughter thinks she reached Collins and Reed. She filled a form at Collins Family Care instead. The call comes from the parent chain within minutes, friendly and fast, with a calendar link and a promise to email everything you need. By the time Collins and Reed calls back from a direct line, the arrangement is half built somewhere else. Financing arrives at the moment of fatigue. We can help with affordability. Out come the tablets. By now, pay later offers with soft approvals, low first payments, and APR buried after 3 taps. Miss a payment and fees. Stack. The plan stretches a $6,000 package into 24 months that costs $7,800. Inside the arrangement room, the lender looks like part of the team. The brochure reads like relief. The terms feel real when the first bill hits a month after the funeral. Parallel to that, the CRM remembers. If a family chose the mid-tier package last time, the system suggests the same for a second parent. To keep services consistent, cross-sell emails arrive around anniversaries, memorial stones, upgraded portraits, page renewals. Data turns mourning into marketing cadence. No law forbids it. No screen warns that your sorrow trained a model. In the background, independents try to fight back with transparency, posting full-price lists, refusing lead funnels, answering phones themselves. It works when families find them early. It fails when SEO buries them and grief compresses time. The consolidator's advantage isn't only size. It's timing. They meet you first, frame the options, and pace the choices. By the time price appears, the path feels chosen. Here's the quiet pivot. Technology didn't make funerals predatory. Incentives did. Software just fit those incentives like a glove. Lead capture replaces word of mouth. Scripts replace the neighbor director's judgment. Dynamic pricing replaces the handshake. And financing replaces the hard pause that used to make people call a cousin and ask, "Do we really need that?" In this system, the answer arrives
Pandemic
before
stress
the
test.
question is formed.
Margins in mass grief.
Everything we've been tracking hit the same week the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Crematories ran at capacity. Refrigeration units multiplied in parking lots. Chapels closed, then reopened with caps, then closed again. Families wanted simple, fast, safe. The system adjusted, just not in the way most people think. Here's where the stakes cut deep. When deaths surge, time compresses from days to hours. Identification, permits, and scheduling become a queue. In that queue, priority turns into a product. Expedited cremation appears as a fee to move a loved one up the line. Weekend and after-hours surcharges widen. Chapels are unavailable due to restrictions, but private rooms carry cleaning and sanitation costs after each use. Even the absence of a gathering finds a price through virtual memorial packages. What actually happened felt like logistics and read like monetization. Removal teams charged tiered rates for COVID-positive decedents, PPE fees per staffer, hazard differentials per transfer, and enhanced disinfection after each run. Refrigeration, once a quiet line, became a daily meter as cremation backlogs stretched into a week. Paperwork moved online, remote authorizations, e-sign cremation approvals, making speed the new value add. Speed, conveniently, had a price. Meanwhile, families who wanted burial ran into cemetery capacity. Crews staggered shifts, grave openings limited per day. Restricted attendance at committals meant smaller tents and fewer chairs, but installation, opening, and closing didn't discount. Holiday surcharges survived the absence of holidays. If the funeral home and cemetery shared an owner, coordination fees neither side charged before the pandemic started to appear between them. Across town, a publicly funded provider looked at the same crush and ate costs. No priority upsell, no PP line item, flexible identification by appointment with no after-hours adders. It wasn't glamorous. It was service. Private chains documented everything to justify invoices. Public and nonprofit operators documented to satisfy auditors, then swallowed margins. The contrast didn't make headlines. The families who felt it noticed. Here's the human moment. A son on FaceTime watches a staffer hold a phone by a window because the morgue is full and visitors aren't allowed inside. He's offered a virtual memorial with slideshow hosting and premium streaming, $295 for the Plus tier. He's told it will let the whole family be there together. He says yes and feels grateful. A month later, the subscription email pings. Keep your memorial live another year. The grief window extends into a billing window. PP turned into its own column. Gowns, masks, gloves, necessary and finite, showed up as flat fees per arrangement or per staff contact. Some firms bundled them into safety protocols, a line that never went away even as supplies stabilized. Others used it as a pass-through and shared invoices on request. Policies diverged. Incentives didn't. Where scripts already taught teams to anchor with a non-declinable fee, a health measures anchor folded in neatly. Regulatory waivers opened doors nobody expected. Remote notarization of cremation authorizations, relaxed in-person ID requirements, virtual arrangement conferences. Convenience for families, yes. Also acceleration for funnels. We can get everything done on this call replaced, come in, and we'll go over options. The script compressed to clicks. With fewer eyes on printed GPLs, the package ladder moved faster. The FTC's funeral rules still applied, but the room, the leverage point, was now a screen controlled by the seller. Then came pricing behavior that split the industry. Independents, fearing reputational blowback, held rates or offered hardship discounts. Chains, managing volume and debt service, leaned into capacity management fees. Rush cremations, limited chapel reopenings at premium blocks, priority witness, slots when viewers were finally allowed. Even obituary platforms nudged upgrades. Expanded streaming capacity for large families dispersed across states. Essential became optional, became tiered. What nobody knew at the time was how quickly dynamic pricing would learn grief at scale. CRMs tagged COVID cases, flagged high-urgency calls, and suggested packages historically chosen under pressure. The result wasn't cartoonish gouging. It was friction arranged so the fastest, most respectful seeming path cost more. Under mass grief, the pattern multiplied. In the aftermath, audits asked, who absorbed costs and who passed them through? Who refunded sanitation fees when restrictions lifted? Who kept capacity, premiums after the backlog cleared? Public records show patchwork answers. Where oversight was strong, municipal crematories, county-run burial assistance, extras stayed minimal. Where corporate templates ruled, new lines lingered. Here's the quiet reveal. Crisis didn't invent the business model. It clarified it. When volume surged, the system showed what it values. Speed as a product, access as a premium, safety as a billable feature. Families weren't choosing extravagance. They were buying time, certainty, and dignity in a storm. The invoice treated those as upgrades. And once the storm passed, many of those upgrades stayed on the menu, ready for the next family who can't afford a delay. The community cost, when independents disappear. While the pandemic exposed the mechanics, the day-to-day cost shows up when the town loses its last truly independent home. The phone still rings at the same number. The carpet still smells like coffee and carnations. But the choices shrink, the prices drift up, and the culture thins out one line item at a time. Here's where the stakes hit a street with one chapel. In a rural county, the independent closes after 48 years. The chain that owns 2 other homes nearby buys the building and keeps the family name. For families without easy transport, that's the only practical option. Without a real competitor, most families choose. Turns into this is how it's done here. When one provider sets the anchor, the market stops arguing with the anchor. Service becomes standard. Standard becomes expensive. What actually happens looks invisible until you add it up. The Saturday surcharge used to be waived for farm families because harvest can't pause. Now it's policy. The director once known for slipping a widow a discount now has a quota. The viewing hours compress into blocks that match staffing templates, not the pastor's calendar. Live music becomes an AV package with a technician and a rental fee for 2 microphones. The small mercies that stitched community to ritual are replaced by forms and scripts. Nobody's cruel. Nobody's flexible. Meanwhile, cultural rites get flattened. Among family asks for extended vigil hours and ancestral offerings. The package supports cultural accommodations up to a capped window. Anything beyond that triggers facility overtime and enhanced cleaning. A Muslim family needs swift burial without embalming. The policy allows it, but refrigeration charges begin immediately, and the cemetery across the road, under the same parent, requires a vault that Islamic law doesn't. A waiver exists. It's honored slowly. The imam waits while the office checks with corporate. Across town, the one storefront that used to print mass cards in a pinch loses the funeral home's business when exclusivity kicks in. A church sexton who relied on the independent's quiet flexibility now deals with a portal and a deadline. The choir director who always stayed an extra half hour for grieving cousins learns there's a room reset fee if the family runs over. These aren't arguments about taste. They're collisions between culture and cadence. Workers feel it first. A licensed director who grew up laying out neighbors' grandparents now spends half his day logging CRM notes and tracking conversion. His bonus depends on package adoption and BNPL signups. He still cares. Care competes with metrics. When he comps a live stream for a family that can't afford it, the district manager calls. Appreciate your heart. Watch the waivers. He goes home with the same ache the family carries. The price cascade starts quietly. With the chain anchoring the local rate, the remaining independent 2 towns over inches up to survive. Casket wholesalers match the chain's rebate tiers only at volumes small shops can't hit, so unit costs rise for the holdouts. Crematories aligned with networks prioritize in-house calls. Outside pickups get later slots or priority fees. Even death certificates, processed by county clerks, become an upsell moment. We recommend 10, you don't want to be short. Families buy 6 more than they need because a stranger told them not to risk it. Estate math shows the spillover. A son uses BNPL to bridge a $9,000 package. The APR hides behind percent if paid in 6 months, then steps up when a late paycheck misses a due date. By month 8, fees have stacked. Credit cards cover cash advances the plan didn't guarantee. The GoFundMe his cousin posted brings in $1,200. A lender calls the week probate opens. The funeral isn't a line in the estate, it's the gravity well around it. Community fundraisers shift tone too. The fire hall spaghetti dinner that once covered a neighbor's service now plugs gaps the family didn't expect. Opening and closing fees, marker-setting charges, obituary costs that ballooned online. The pastor who knows the widow's grocery list can't negotiate with a template. He calls a friend at the county for burial aid. The budget's tapped out until July. What nobody knew at the outset is how the illusion of choice blunts outrage. 3 homes, 3 names, 1 owner. Reviews scatter. A complaint to Baker & Sons doesn't hit Harper Memorial, even though both feed the same region manager. The AG hotline logs a trickle, not a pattern. The problem doesn't look systemic because the system wears different hats in public. Meanwhile, traditions compress into celebrations of life with slideshow tears. For some families, that's healing. For others, it erases marks of faith that held meaning for generations. The rabbi who once negotiated a green burial with the old owner now gets a call back from legal. The answer arrives after sundown. The family gives up, not on conviction, on time. In the aftermath, the town adjusts. Obituaries lean shorter to dodge platform fees. Neighbors coordinate meal trains because the funeral reception cost more than anyone planned. A new co-op starts meeting in a library room to talk about home vigils and municipal cremation options. They trade PDFs of real price lists. A director from the next county shows up on his day off to explain what's actually required by law. The work of community reassembles itself around the holes consolidation left. The money stack, funds, debt, and exit math. Follow the dollars up the staircase, and the picture sharpens. What looks like a quiet, steady business on Main Street becomes a financial instrument on the 30th floor. The decisions that shape a family's invoice are downstream from a capital stack designed to turn mourning into predictable cash flows. Here's the stakes moment most towns never see. The acquisition isn't paid for with savings. It's a leveraged buyout, debt piled onto the company that was just bought. The collateral isn't software users or ad inventory. It's human inevitability. The phones will ring, the vans will roll, the cash will come in. Bank lenders and private credit funds like that story. Death is non-cyclical. Calls dip and swell, but they never stop. What actually happens starts with covenants and models. A fund acquires a platform at, say, 8 times EBITDA, then bolts on smaller homes at 5 or 6 times. The loans sit on the operating company, not the fund. Interest clocks start ticking. To make the math work, managers push for ARPU, average revenue per arrangement, because price per family is faster to move than call volume. Scripts and packages aren't just sales tools, they're debt service plans. Sale leasebacks arrive as the next lever. The new owner sells the funeral home real estate to a REIT or a landlord, books a one-time gain, then leases it back for 20 years. On paper, the business looks asset-light, returning capital to shareholders. On the ground, rent becomes a fixed monthly nut index to inflation. You can't renegotiate the landlord when calls slow. You renegotiate families, room fees, staff blocks, priority slots, until the rent clears. Meanwhile, cash gets tapped before the exit. Dividend recapitalizations let owners borrow more against the company and pay themselves a dividend now. Management fees flow to the fund for advisory services. The operating company carries the balance. From the street, nothing changes. The awning still says "and Sons." In the P&L, interest expense crowds out slack. Discounts get harder. Make it right becomes make goal. This was the moment everything changed for the people inside. A director who used to comp a live stream for a family in a pinch now sees a dashboard of red, yellow, green by arrangement. Did the non-declinable fee stick? Did the package tier hold? Did BNPL convert? Bonuses align with debt covenants no family will ever read. Everyone smiles a little tighter under fluorescent lights. Unknown to them, across town, pre-need isn't just tomorrow's revenue, it's collateral. A thick book of funded contracts supports borrowing because it anchors future cash. The more pre-need you stack, the safer the lenders feel. But not all pre-need is equal. Trust balances can be restricted. Insurance assignments carry commissions. The incentive drifts toward volume. Lunch and learn becomes a pipeline event. Roll-ups head for one of 2 exits. Sell to a bigger chain or go public. The pitch deck shows multiple expansion. We bought small at 5 to 6 times earnings, standardized, centralized, and now this platform deserves 8 to 10. Synergies are bullet points. Shared call centers, unified vendors, dynamic pricing, vertical integration with cemeteries. Risk shows up as footnotes: labor shortages, regulatory shifts, consumer pushback. Banks underwrite to the mean. People die, bills get paid. But there's one problem lurking in the footnotes: covenant-light risk. In good times, lenders relax covenants to win deals. In tight times, those same loose terms leave operators with fewer breaks. If volume dips or bad press slows calls, interest still accrues, rent still rises per the lease escalator, and working capital turns brittle. The response moves where it always moves: price. Room fees that were sometimes waived become non-waivable. Identification that was free becomes billable. The family's grief window patches the company's debt window. Real estate carve-outs reshape cemeteries too. If land is spun to a separate holding company, the operating cemetery pays ground rent and shared services. Perpetual care funds soothe regulators on one page. Operating leases raise required cash on another. A manager looks at mowing costs and stretches cycles. Families read neglect as disrespect. The spreadsheet reads it as margin management. While that was happening at headquarters, a compliance officer flagged the FTC's noise about online pricing. Lawyers modeled scenarios. If web posting is forced, will price competition compress ARPU? The Chevron ruling cut the agency's deference. The update might take years. The board heaved. Time to keep optimizing the funnel. Here's the microstory that lands it. A fund partner flips open a laptop over hotel eggs. He scans a dashboard. Cremation mix up 2 points, average ticket steady, BNPL adoption climbing. He nods, fires an email. Push pre-need close rates. Sale leaseback tranche 2 next quarter. And heads to a diligence meeting on 3 more independents with legacy names. 20 minutes later, a director in one of those homes tells a widow kindly, "Most families choose the silver package. Both are true in their worlds. Only one writes the check." In the aftermath of an exit, press releases celebrate continuity of care and community commitment. Staff get new logins. Rent escalates per the lease. Debt rolls to the next owner. The incentives don't change, they compound. What looks like stability from the sidewalk is leverage from the spreadsheet. What sounds like options in the room are instruments in a capital stack. That's the stack families push against without knowing it. Loans priced on inevitability, rents set on concrete, fees skimmed before farewells, exits planned before eulogies. The model isn't illegal. It's efficient. And efficiency, in the wrong place, has a cost that never shows up on an investor slide. Only on a Tuesday afternoon, when a family signs cracks faster in the vault than they can breathe. Legal fights, whistleblowers, backfires. While the capital stack hums, pressure leaks at the edges. It shows up in court dockets, AG pressers, and late-night emails from employees who can't square the script with the mirror. The model runs on predictability. People aren't predictable. Here's the stakes moment that breaks the spell. A widow opens an invoice and sees a handling fee for a Costco casket that never touched a staffer's hands. She files a complaint. It lands at a state AG's desk already heavy with similar stories. Illegal casket penalties disguised as logistics, cash advances padded with facilitation, and pre-need guarantees that dissolve under new ownership. One case doesn't change a template. A pattern does. What actually happens is methodical and public. Consumer lawsuits allege deceptive pricing and unfair trade practices. Non-declinable fees recast as compulsory steps for a private farewell, third-party casket deterrents that chill a right the FTC funeral rule protects, cremation ads that bury the real price under necessities shown only in the room. Plaintiff's attorneys subpoena internal emails. Words like conversion target and gatekeeper fee move from trainings to exhibits. Settlements arrive with checks and promises of enhanced disclosures. Templates rewrite a paragraph. Incentives stay put. State attorneys general push where regulators move slow. Trust shortfalls pull the heaviest levers. Michigan didn't just find brown grass. It found $61 million missing across 28 cemeteries and stepped in. Other states sue owners who treated perpetual care as petty cash. Consent decrees force audits, independent trustees, and public reporting. Families hear, oversight restored, at a press conference, and still find ruts by the headstone a year later. Money can be replaced. Time under neglect can't. Meanwhile, employees start talking. A director forwards a memo that ties bonuses to package tier adoption and BNPL signups. A counselor records a meeting where most families choose. is rehearsed until it lands exactly right, then typed into CRM as soft close. A crematory tech sends photos of priority cues that look suspiciously like paid lines. Not every complaint survives HR. Some end up with reporters. The media doesn't need a villain to tell the story. It needs receipts, scripts, emails, dashboards, pieces that show how caring language and conversion metrics share a page. Here's the microstory. A 30-year embalmer quits after being written up for declining to push embalming on a family who wanted direct cremation. He posts his resignation letter in a private group. It circulates. Local TV calls. He says, measured, families deserve options. We're being told to steer. He doesn't name the chain. Viewers recognize the carpet in the B-roll. Media investigations do what regulators can't. Compress complexity into a human arc. Hidden ownership surfaces. 3 independents sharing a parent. Obituary steering gets daylight. Memorial pages that monetize grief. Lead gen funnels pose as comparison tools. The point isn't to outlaw grief tech. It's to show how it's used when the same company controls the door, the room, and the checkout. After a series runs, phones ring at City Hall. A council member floats an ordinance. Post complete price lists online or lose your local license. The room fills with directors in black suits. Some chains comply quietly. Others threaten to sue. Backfires happen slowly, then all at once. A small town forms a funeral co-op, running on member dues, transparent pricing, and partnerships with a municipal crematory. A church coalition funds hardship burials with a cap tied to a posted menu. A county commissioner orders audits of cemetery care funds and publishes the statements online. An independent director 2 towns over starts posting his GPL and a what the law requires sheet on the homepage. Calls shift, not a flood, but enough to notice. Litigation sometimes hits the pressure points that spreadsheets ignore. A class action forces refunds for illegal casket fees. Another compels clear disclosure that basic services are non-declinable and what they include. A consent order requires web posting of full GPLs for 3 years. Competitors watch and preempt. The moat narrows when sunlight gets scheduled. But there's one problem. The Supreme Court's 2024 Chevron-style deference ruling clipped agency power. Updating the funeral rule to force online transparency or outlaw soft deterrence becomes a longer fight. Chains lawyer up, stall, and argue that markets already provide options. While the briefs stack, local reforms grow teeth. City-level transparency rules, state cemetery audits, and boards that can yank licenses for repeat deceptions. The national fix stalls, the county moves. In the aftermath, not every story ends with a win. Some whistleblowers burn out. Some AGs settle light. Some families don't see a dime back. But every crack exposes a seam. Every seam teaches a defense. Communities learn to ask for GPLs before grief, to cite the rule in writing, to audit cemetery funds, to decline BNPL in the room. The vault doesn't collapse. It leaks, enough for a family to find the door that doesn't charge for opening it. Your defense, a family playbook that works. Start before the phone call. Planning without prepaying is leverage. Make a folder with 3 things. Your wishes, 3 current general price lists from providers in your area, and a short note naming who will make decisions. Call 3 funeral homes now. Don't wait. And ask for their GPL by email. They're required to give prices by phone. Many will send the list. If a site hides prices, write it down as a red flag. You're building a map you'll use when time gets tight. Next, write your rules. Number 1, insist on a la carte. Packages are framing devices. Tell the arranger, we'll select items line by line. Number 2, decline embalming unless you truly want a public viewing and your state or the provider's policy requires it. For identification, ask for brief private ID or photo verification if allowed. Number 3, set a cap before the meeting. Our budget is X, including cemetery costs, and keep it visible. When grief squeezes, the cap does the thinking you can't. Caskets and urns are traps only if you let them be. You have the right to buy from a third party, and the funeral home must accept delivery without charging a handling fee. Email this sentence in advance. We intend to provide our own casket/urn pursuant to the FTC funeral rule. Please confirm acceptance and delivery instructions. Ask for a delivery window broader than 2 hours and a written statement that no penalties apply for early delivery. If they send fit not guaranteed language, Acknowledge it and stick to your plan. Do not sign showroom orders to hold something you don't want. Restocking fees live there. Cremation simples aren't simple unless you pin them down. Ask for a written out-the-door cremation total, including transfer, refrigeration, necessary permits, identification, basic container, and return of remains. If they say identification viewing is extra, decide if you want it. Otherwise, request photo verification at no charge. Decline priority, unless there's a documented delay that truly affects you. Weekend pickup fees? Ask to schedule during standard hours. If they say most families choose, say, we'll review the a la carte list. Cash advances look harmless. They leak money. Buy flowers directly from a local florist and have them delivered. For obituaries, price the newspaper yourself and post a free notice through the paper's direct portal if available. Clergy honorariums can be handled directly through your faith community. Order only the number of death certificates you need for known institutions. Ask your bank, insurer, and DMV how many they require. Then order extras later if necessary. Many states allow reorders for the same price. Cemetery costs are separate and permanent. Before you buy a plot, ask for a complete cemetery price list, rules and regulations, the Perpetual Care Trust's latest statement, and the percentage of each sale deposited, and written policies on vaults, markers, installations, transfers, and second interments. Reference Michigan's $61 million trust failure as your reason. We'd like to review care fund health. If they balk, that's data. Confirm in writing whether a vault is required by rule or just custom, and whether Islamic, Jewish, or green burial accommodations exist with waivers for vaults. Get opening/closing fees for weekdays, weekends, and holidays in writing. If you already own a plot, ask about transfer fees now, not when you're grieving. Pre-need planning without prepaying is the safest line. Put your wishes in writing. Keep your GPLs updated annually. Instead of funding a trust or insurance policy that pays commissions, set aside a dedicated savings or payable on death account titled for the person who'll arrange your funeral. It stays in your control, grows at your bank's rate, and moves instantly when needed. If you still want a pre-need contract, demand a clear list of what's guaranteed versus not, a statement of portability with no surrender charges, and a cooling-off period in writing. Never sign a pre-need at a lunch and learn. Take it home, compare to 2 others, and sleep on it. In the arrangement room, control the record. Before you arrive, email. Please have a current GPL and a written itemization prepared. We will not consider packages. In the room, repeat, line item, please. Photograph or scan every page before you sign. Circle any non-declinable basic services fee and ask what it includes. Confirm that no staff visitation blocks or chapel fees are bundled without consent. If they claim embalming is required, ask, by what statute or written policy, and request it in writing. If it's policy, you can shop elsewhere. If it's law, they can. Cite the code. Do not finance grief. BNPL in the arrangement room feels merciful. The APR arrives later. If you must finance, use a low-interest credit card with strong dispute protections and set an autopay plan. Better, scale down the service to what you can pay now. Dignity isn't in line items, it's in how people show up. Ask for a hardship discount directly and silently count to 5. Many directors still help when asked clearly. Document everything. Keep a log, dates, times, who said what you agreed to. If you spot a likely funeral rule violation, refusal of an outside casket, hidden handling fees, no GPL before discussion, say calmly, we'd like to resolve this. Otherwise, we'll contact the FTC and the state board. Then be ready to walk. Your biggest power is leaving before you sign. Finally, share the playbook. Put the folder where your family can find it. Email your 3 GPLs to the person who'll decide. Add 2 phone numbers for true independence or a municipal provider. If a chain owns most local homes, note which share a parent. Clarity now becomes courage later. That's how you keep your last $25,000 in your family and take the price of grief off the table. Community Solutions, breaking the death monopoly. While one family fights invoice by invoice, communities can change the terrain beneath the invoices. The playbook is local, practical, and fast enough to matter before the next obituary runs. Start with sunlight. City councils can pass transparency ordinances that require funeral homes and cemeteries to post complete, itemized price lists online. No forms, no callbacks. Tie the rule to local licensing. If a provider won't publish, they don't renew. Set a clock, 30 days to comply, mystery shop quarterly with volunteers, and fine for each day a complete GPL isn't visible. The honest firms adjust. The opaque ones surface quickly. Pair that with standard disclosure sheets. One page, required at first contact, phone, web, or in person, listing non-declinable fees, embalming policies with legal citations, outside casket rights, and every potential priority or after-hours charge. Make the sheet downloadable on the homepage and hand it across the counter before a conversation begins. When scripts can't bury the lead, prices start competing again. Next, build a public option. Municipal and faith-based funds can cover hardship funerals with caps tied to a posted menu. Direct cremation up to a fixed amount, gravesite-only burials with specified cemetery fees, and no vendor kickbacks. Keep the program simple, audited, and publicly reported. Publish monthly dashboards. Number of families served, average cost, and providers used. Quiet dignity, not paperwork hell. Then create alternatives at cost. Co-op funeral homes and community crematories work when they pool purchasing and share staffing. Start with a nonprofit umbrella. Seed it with member dues, grants, and a municipal loan, and hire licensed directors who believe in transparency. Post prices on day one. Partner with a county-run or co-op crematory that schedules like a clinic, not a funnel. Offer simple services, clear upgrades, and know most families choose scripts. When a co-op sets a visible anchor, for-profit quotes start drifting down. On cemetery ground, make the trust visible. Counties can require cemeteries to file annual perpetual care fund statements, deposits, withdrawals, investment policy, independent trustee letters, and post them online. Audit a random sample each year. If balances fall below statutory minimums, freeze plot sales, mandate remediation plans, and notify plot owners by mail. Tie compliance to deed recording or business tax renewal. The goal isn't punishment. It's to keep grass cut and stones upright with money that was always supposed to be there. Tackle rules that gatekeep culture. Work with state boards to allow religious waivers for vaults where faith forbids them. Approve green burial sections with clear soil and maintenance standards, and cap installation-only games that tax outside markers. Publish a model cultural accommodations policy any cemetery can adopt. When families can point to a county-backed template, arguments end faster. Now aim at the casket wall. State legislatures can ban any fee that penalizes outside caskets or urns. Call it what you want: handling, receiving, logistics. Make the fine painful, escalate for repeat behavior, and empower AGs to pursue pattern cases. Pair it with a statewide hotline that logs complaints and publishes quarterly tallies by provider. Sunlight plus teeth beats polite letters. Fix leads at the source. Require that any comparison or lead gen site operating in your jurisdiction display prominent ownership disclosures. Who runs it, who gets the lead, and whether listed providers are affiliated. Ban ads that by an independent's name and route calls to a chain without a conspicuous affiliated tag. When a resident searches Collins Funeral Home, the first result shouldn't be a lookalike owned by a different parent. If BNPL has become a grief trap, regulate the room. Cities can require providers that offer financing to present a standardized disclosure in large type. Total cost with interest, APR range, late fees, and a cooling-off period before funding. Ban pre-check boxes and instant accept scripts during the first contact. Mandate a 24-hour hold for financing on any arrangement over a threshold, with the right to cancel without penalty. If the sale depends on speed, slow it by design. Support workers so they can support families. Pass safe harbor rules that protect licensed staff who refuse to misrepresent law or apply illegal fees, with a hotline to report pressure. Offer continuing education credits for trainings on transparency and cultural competence. Make it safe to say kindly, you don't need that, without a manager's glare. Finally, organize neighbors. Start a community death care council. Faith leaders, social workers, hospice nurses, independent directors, and 2 people who just went through this. Publish a local law versus policy one-pager. Host quarterly clinics where families can collect GPLs, learn rights, and pre-plan without paying. Keep a living list of true independents, municipal options, co-ops, and transparent chains. When someone dies, a text goes out with the map, not a guess. None of this stops grief. It changes who sets the terms. When prices are posted, trust funds audited, financing slowed, and alternatives real. Most families choose, becomes an invitation, not a trap. And the last $25,000 stays where it belongs, in memories, not margins. The pattern, from farmland to funerals. Same algorithm, different doorway. Buy essentials with real assets, hide price in bundles, weaponize timing, and let data steer emotion. Housing, hospitals, groceries, and now graves. Scarcity plus secrecy equals margin. When decisions compress, algorithms expand. The pattern isn't complicated. It's relentless. Don't pay the grief premium. Grief shouldn't be a revenue model. Keep leverage. Plan without prepaying. Demand itemized prices and walk from funnels. Subscribe for more defenses, share this with family, and watch our healthcare billing trap expose next. Stay with us, because Wall Street shows up where choices feel fixed.